Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're looking into something that I know a lot of you have been asking about, communication skills for software developers.
Oh, yeah,
You've sent in a ton of great articles and resources, so clearly this is something that a lot of you out there are thinking about.
for sure.
And, it really makes sense. We think about, coding is the heart of it all, right?
Right.
But really, you can be the most brilliant coder in the world if you can't explain your ideas, if you can't communicate effectively with your team, with stakeholders, then you're really kind of stuck.
Yeah, what's funny is even though it's so important uh, in this field, it's often treated as an afterthought.
Right.
But if you think about it, being able to explain these really complex technical concepts
Yeah.
to different audiences, clients, stakeholders, other developers,
Right.
it's like a superpower.
It is a superpower for sure. And one thing that really stood out to me from all the stuff you sent over was this idea of presentations.
Hmm.
I mean, we've all been to those tech talks, right?
Right.
Where we're lost by slide 3.
Absolutely.
So how do we avoid being that presenter?
One key takeaway is knowing your audience.
Okay.
It's not just a polite suggestion. It's like absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Explaining a complex algorithm to a room full of non-technical stakeholders requires a completely different approach than presenting to a dev team.
Right. Okay. So let's say I'm presenting to those non-technical stakeholders. What do I do to keep them from tuning out?
Don't overwhelm them with jargon and code.
Right.
Instead, focus on what they care about,
Okay.
outcomes and impacts.
Right.
You could try using analogies from their world, like imagine comparing a complex sorting algorithm
Wow.
to something familiar, like processing invoices
Right.
or optimizing a delivery route.
Yeah, that makes sense. Meet them where they are.
Exactly.
Yeah, use language they understand. And I also noticed a lot of emphasis on storytelling in these articles.
Oh, for sure.
And I've been to tech talks that were more like captivating stories
Yeah.
than dry presentations. Storytelling is so powerful because it helps people connect with information on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Take the React Hooks presentation by Dan Abramoff, for example.
Oh, yeah.
He managed to explain this really complex technical concept by weaving it into this relatable narrative.
It's a great example.
Yeah,
So we've got relatable analogies, we've got compelling narratives.
right.
What else can we do to keep those stakeholders engaged?
Don't forget about interactive elements.
Ooh.
Icebreakers, live polls, Q&A sessions can turn a passive audience
Oh, okay.
into active participants.
Right, keep them on their toes.
Exactly.
Speaking of engaging presentations, what about demos?
Ooh, yeah?
I've seen some incredible live coding examples that make software come alive.
Demos are great because they show rather than just tell.
Yeah.
It's like watching a master chef prepare a meal.
Okay.
You're not just hearing about the recipe, you're seeing the techniques and the ingredients in action.
So I guess just like a chef needs to prep their ingredients and have backup plans,
For sure.
demo prep and troubleshooting are crucial. Absolutely.
What happens if something goes wrong during a live coding session?
Well, things don't always go as planned. That's
Oh.
okay. The key is to recover gracefully.
Okay.
If there's a technical hiccup, explain it simply.
Right.
Don't panic, and maybe use the opportunity to highlight a different feature or open the floor for questions.
So it's all about staying calm and engaged.
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense. It's about being adaptable and showing that you're human, now shifting gears a bit.
Okay.
Your material also really dug into training.
Yeah.
And it made me think about how crucial it is for senior developers to effectively share their knowledge with the more junior members of the team.
Absolutely. And that often means breaking down complex topics into digestible pieces.
Okay.
It's kind of like teaching someone to cook.
Yeah.
You wouldn't throw them into a 5-course meal prep on day one.
Right.
You start with the basics, show them the techniques, and then gradually build up their skills.
Okay, so how do we translate that cooking lesson approach to training developers?
One technique that often gets overlooked is code reading. Encourage active engagement.
Okay.
Look for comments that explain the why behind the code.
Right.
Use debugging tools to step through the execution flow and see how different parts interact.
That's a great point. It's like reading a book with a highlighter and taking notes.
Exactly.
You're actively engaging with the material,
Right.
which helps with understanding and retention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of breaks.
Okay.
Encourage trainees to step away from the code periodically
Yeah.
to process the information and avoid overload.
Love that.
It's like, okay, we've covered a lot. Let's take a breather, grab some coffee, come back refreshed.
I like it. And we also can't forget about mentoring and internships.
Yeah.
Those hands-on experiences are just so valuable.
Totally. It's a two-way street of learning and sharing.
Yeah.
And here's something I found particularly fascinating. Did you know that interactive exercises, especially in software design, can actually uncover hidden preferences
Right.
that people might not even be consciously aware of?
Oh, that's really interesting. I
Yeah.
can see how that would be valuable.
Yeah.
It's like those personality tests that reveal these unexpected insights about yourself.
Exactly.
So these exercises are like a window into people's design instincts.
Exactly. It's not just about what people say they prefer. It's how they actually interact with the tools and challenges presented to them.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's like those design thinking workshops where you realize people approach problems in such different ways.
Totally. And speaking of making learning engaging,
Yeah.
we have to talk about gamification.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
But gamification aside, how do we actually measure the success of our training efforts?
Right.
How do we know if the knowledge has truly sunk in?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's not just about ticking boxes. We need a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
Tests, practical tasks, feedback from mentors, observation of real-world application, they all play a role in gauging whether someone has grasped those concepts and can apply them.
Okay, so we've covered presentations and training in depth,
Yeah.
but there's another crucial aspect of communication that we need to tackle:
Hmm.
discussions.
Oh, yeah.
Let's face it, they can get a little heated sometimes.
For sure, especially when we're passionate about our code.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one thing that your research really emphasized was this idea of constructive criticism.
Absolutely.
So constructive criticism, what does that actually look like in the context of, say, a code review?
It's about moving beyond just pointing out flaws.
Okay.
Instead of saying, this code is messy,
Right.
try offering specific suggestions for improvement.
Okay.
Like, I noticed this function is doing a lot of different things.
Yeah.
It might be more readable and maintainable if we broke it down into smaller, more focused functions.
Right. So it's about being solution-oriented
Yeah.
and providing actionable feedback. And I imagine timing is important too.
Okay.
I've been on the receiving end of feedback that felt like an ambush.
Yeah.
It didn't go well.
Timing and delivery are key.
Yeah.
Feedback is most effective when it's given promptly in a private setting and with a focus on helping that person improve their skills.
Right.
And it should go without saying, but empathy is crucial.
Yeah.
Remember, there's a human being behind that code.
I think we've all been there on both sides of poorly delivered feedback.
For sure.
So empathy, solution-oriented feedback, good timing.
Right.
What else is important for effective communication within teams?
In a world of constant notifications and information overload, prioritization is crucial.
Yeah.
We need to be mindful of our colleagues' time and attention.
Right.
Instead of bombarding them with every single thought or update, think about what's truly important and highlight those key points.
Right. It's like sending a well-structured email
Exactly.
instead of a massive wall of text.
No one wants to wade through that.
And visual aids like diagrams or flowcharts can be really helpful for clarifying complex information, right?
Absolutely, visuals can cut through the noise and make those complex ideas much easier to grasp.
And speaking of cutting through the noise,
Yeah.
let's talk about persuasive arguments.
Okay.
You shared some fascinating research on this,
Right.
and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how this applies to software developers.
Yeah, definitely.
I was thinking about how this all connects back to our listeners' potential needs.
Yeah.
Let's say they need to convince their team to adopt a new framework or approach. What are the key ingredients of a persuasive argument in that context?
Your research highlighted some important elements.
Okay.
A clear logical structure, backing up claims with evidence, anticipating and addressing counterpoints.
Right.
And of course, using clear and concise language.
So it's not just about having a strong opinion.
Right.
It's about building a solid case
Exactly.
and presenting it in a way that's compelling and easy to understand.
Yeah.
But what happens when even the most persuasive arguments don't lead to complete agreement? I imagine compromise is a crucial skill in those situations.
Absolutely. Not every discussion ends in a unanimous decision.
Right.
Knowing how to find compromises is essential for moving forward as a team.
So what are the secrets to successful compromise?
Okay.
What skills do we need to hone to navigate those tricky situations?
Active listening is crucial.
Okay.
Really hearing and understanding the other person's perspective.
Right.
It's also about identifying common ground,
Okay.
generating alternative solutions, and being flexible enough to adjust your own position.
Yeah.
And of course, maintaining respect for the other person, even when you disagree.
That sounds like successful compromise requires a delicate balance of assertiveness and open-mindedness.
It does. It's about advocating for your own ideas while also being willing to consider different perspectives and find a solution that benefits everyone involved.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground
We have,
on presentations, training, and discussions.
for sure.
But I'm guessing we're not done yet.
You're right.
There's still this whole world of persuasion techniques to explore.
There is, and there's a lot of fascinating research on how those techniques apply specifically to communication in tech.
Okay.
So let's dive into that next. You're telling me there's so much to unpack when it comes to persuasion techniques.
Right.
And your research really pointed to some key principles that apply across presentations training, even those tough discussions.
Okay.
We're talking storytelling, using visuals, being a good listener, asking the right questions, clear language, authenticity, and enthusiasm.
Okay, storytelling. That really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Thinking back to that React Hooks presentation we talked about earlier,
Right.
it wasn't just informative, it was engaging because it felt like a story.
Exactly. And that's what makes storytelling so powerful. It can take even the most technical concept and make it relatable and memorable.
Yeah.
And when people connect with the story, they're way more likely to remember the information
Right.
and be persuaded by the message.
So how do we become better storytellers as developers? Are we talking about like writing novels about our code?
Not quite. It's more about finding the narrative within the technical information.
Okay.
Think about the problem you're solving, the challenges, the breakthroughs, the impact.
Okay.
That's your story arc.
Okay, so it's about finding the human element within the technical details.
Exactly.
What about visuals?
Ooh, yeah.
I know I'm a visual learner, so a well-placed diagram or chart can really help me.
For sure. Visuals are super powerful.
Yeah.
They make complex information more accessible,
Right.
engaging, and easier to remember.
Okay.
Think about using diagrams to illustrate relationships, flowcharts to show processes, or even sketches to explain ideas.
Like on a whiteboard?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they say a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Right.
But beyond storytelling and visuals, you also mentioned active listening
Yeah.
and asking questions. How do those help with persuasion?
Well, asking the right questions can guide the conversation in a way that leads people to your point of view without them even realizing it. It also shows you're genuinely interested in their perspective,
Right.
which builds trust and rapport.
But it has to be genuine curiosity, right?
Absolutely. Authenticity is crucial.
Yeah.
When you're genuinely curious and engaged, people are more likely to be receptive to your ideas.
Right.
And that ties into enthusiasm. If you're passionate about what you're talking about, that energy is contagious.
It's like they say enthusiasm is contagious.
Exactly. If you're excited about something, it's hard for others not to get caught up in that.
Yeah, so we've covered some pretty powerful persuasion techniques.
We have.
But I think it's important to remember that effective communication, especially in tech, is about more than just getting people to agree with you.
Right.
It's about building relationships,
Yeah.
fostering collaboration,
For sure.
and creating a shared understanding.
Absolutely.
So let's bring this back to our listener who's trying to improve their communication skills.
Okay.
What does this all mean for them?
Good question.
What are the key takeaways?
Well, we've seen that presentations are about connecting with your audience.
Right.
Using relatable language.
Yeah.
Bringing your ideas to life through storytelling and interactive elements.
Right. And when it comes to training, it's about breaking down those complex topics,
Yeah.
using visuals, and finding creative ways to engage learners.
I'm sure. Whether that's through code reading, hands-on exercises, or even a little gamification.
Yeah, and let's not forget discussions.
Yeah.
We talked about constructive criticism,
Right.
prioritizing information, using visual aids effectively, and mastering the art of persuasion.
Absolutely.
We need to be able to present a compelling case, back it up with evidence, anticipate and address those counterpoints, and ultimately find compromises when we can't agree.
Right. And woven through all of this are those overarching persuasion principles.
Yeah.
Storytelling visualizations, active listening, asking questions, clear language, authenticity, and enthusiasm.
It sounds like effective communication in tech is this multifaceted skill set blending technical expertise with the ability to connect with people on a human level.
It is.
So what's the ultimate goal here? What are we aiming for as we develop these communication skills?
I think it's about recognizing that communication is an ongoing journey,
Yeah,
a process of continuous improvement.
right.
There's always something new to learn, a new skill, to hone a new challenge to overcome.
It's like leveling up your character in a game.
Exactly. You gain experience for, unlock new abilities, and become more effective as you progress.
So what's the final boss battle in this communication quest?
Interesting question.
What's the one piece of advice you'd leave our listener with as they embark on this journey?
I'd encourage them to take a moment to reflect on their own communication style
Okay.
and identify areas where they'd like to improve.
Maybe they need to work on their storytelling skills.
Maybe.
or become more comfortable asking questions, or master the art of the persuasive argument.
Exactly. The key is to be self-aware, proactive, and willing to step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Seek out opportunities to practice, get feedback, and refine your skills.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, from presentations and training to discussions and persuasion techniques.
It's been a fascinating exploration of the power of communication in the tech world.
And to our listener, we hope you've gleaned some valuable insights and practical tips to take your communication game to the next level.
Absolutely. Remember, effective communication isn't just about words.
Yeah.
It's about building connections, fostering collaboration, and ultimately making a positive impact.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious, what are some tools or resources that can help developers boost those communication skills?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
There's a whole ecosystem of resources out there.
Yeah.
For crafting presentations, there are classic tools like PowerPoint and Google Slides,
Right.
but also more dynamic options like Prezi and Canva, which can really bring visuals to life.
And for those looking to add interactive elements, I've had great things about platforms like Mentimeter and Aha Slides.
Oh yeah, those are fantastic. It's like turning a presentation into a game show.
Exactly. And when it comes to training, there's so much knowledge available online. Right.
Through platforms like Coursera, Udemy, and Pluralsight.
Those are great resources.
It's like having a global network of mentors and educators at your fingertips.
And what about staying connected with the developer community?
Yeah.
Don't underestimate the power of online forums and communities.
Okay.
Platforms like Stack Overflow, Reddit, and even GitHub offer invaluable opportunities to connect with fellow developers, ask questions, and share insights.
It's like having a virtual water cooler
Yeah.
where you can bounce ideas off your peers.
Exactly. And beyond the technical aspects, there are resources that focus on the broader communication skills
Yeah.
that are crucial in any field.
So where can our listener find those resources?
Well, there are countless books, podcasts, and online articles dedicated to improving communication skills. Whether it's public speaking, active listening, giving and receiving feedback, or navigating difficult conversations, a quick search will reveal a treasure trove of information.
It sounds like there's no shortage of resources available to help developers become more effective communicators.
But with all this information, what's the one final thought you'd leave our listener with as they embark on this communication journey?
I'd say don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
Try different approaches, see what resonates with your audience, and most importantly, have fun with it.
I love that.
Communication doesn't have to be dry or intimidating when you're passionate about what you're sharing. That energy shines through, and people will take notice.
It's about finding your own voice, your own style, and embracing the joy of connecting with others through effective communication.
Exactly. And remember, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
We're all learning and growing. And by supporting each other and sharing our knowledge, we can all become more effective communicators.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not like you just reach this level and you're done.
Right.
It's something that you're constantly working on.
It is. It's a journey.
So as our listener is embarking on this journey,
Well,
what are some practical steps that they can take to really kind of level up their skills?
but one of the most effective ways to improve is to just seek out opportunities to practice.
Okay.
It could be volunteering to give a presentation at work,
Right.
leading a training session, or even just participating more actively in meetings and discussions.
Right. That's like anything else. The more you do it,
Yeah.
the better you get. But practice alone isn't enough.
Yeah.
I imagine feedback is really important too.
Oh, feedback is crucial. It's invaluable for identifying those areas where you're excelling and those areas where you might need to tweak things.
Right. And it's not just about receiving feedback, it's about being open to it.
Absolutely. Sometimes feedback can be tough to hear,
Yeah.
but it's how we grow.
It's how we grow, for sure. So we've talked about practice and feedback,
Right.
but are there any specific exercises or activities that you would recommend to really help developers hone their communication skills?
There are tons of resources out there. One exercise I often recommend is recording yourself,
Okay.
giving a presentation or leading a discussion.
Oh, wow.
It can be a little awkward at first,
I bet.
but it's incredibly revealing.
Yeah, it's like hearing your own voice on a recording for the first time.
Right? It allows you to identify those little verbal tics, the filler words or those moments where your message might not be as clear as you thought.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
No.
What are some other exercises that you would recommend?
Another good one is to practice explaining technical concepts to a non-technical audience.
Okay.
It could be a family member, a friend, or even just a rubber duck.
Right.
The idea is to force yourself to use clear, concise language and avoid jargon.
It's that classic explain it like I'm five approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It forces you to really think about those core concepts
Right.
and how to convey them in a way that anyone can understand.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into communication skills for software developers, what's the one final message you want to leave our listener with?
Hmm. I would say embrace the journey.
Okay.
Communication is a skill that is developed over time
Yeah.
through practice feedback and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
Right.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Learn from them.
Yeah.
And keep striving to become the best communicator you can be.
Beautifully said. And remember, dear listener, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of developers out there who are working to improve their communication skills as well.
For sure.
So connect with your peers, share your experiences, and support each other along the way. And to our amazing expert, thank you so much for sharing your insights and guidings today.
It's been my pleasure. I'm always happy to talk about the power of communication.
And to all of you tuning in, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We hope you found this exploration of communication skills for software developers informative, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit entertaining. Until next time, happy communicating.